Raptors Weekly Podcast for the week of March the 28th. William Liu joins me in the studio of Raptors Weekly. The Raptors Weekly studio, Will.
This is a studio, yeah. My bedroom is a studio.
We need to get a studio. I think we have enough listeners to the point where we can actually afford a studio. So we got to put that funding request into Blake and see what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I doubt he's going to approve that one.
No. So, Raptors, man. Let's get into the Raptor talk, I guess. Let's preface everything by saying that, we were talking offline that a lot of these games at this point are particularly meaningless to me, at least, because the second seed has been, hammered down, nailed down. I think the first seed is kind of unrealistic just because of Cleveland's schedule is kind of easy and ours is a little tough, which means that the rest of the 9-10 games we have are for fill in the blank, Will.
They're just to pass the time. Like I've been doing these game notes, and the last couple games I just can't bring myself to do it because it's either players are missing because they're resting, or the opponents just suck, like the Pelicans. Like they had like 8 players on. Kendrick Perkins played like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like nothing to take away from these games. So the rest of the games, they're just to fill in the time. Just get everyone healthy.
Like, do you think that since the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, like the Indiana, Detroits, and Chicago's, are like playing competitive basketball and going all out in all these games, where the Raptors are kind of coasting and resting players, you think once the playoffs actually start, that kind of comes into play where the Raptors are going to be less sharp than those teams who are actually playing competitive basketball? Or not competitive, like meaningful basketball?
I doubt it. Also, teams like the Bulls, man, the Bulls are shooting themselves in the foot. They lost by 22 to the Magic on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then before that, they lost a home and home to the Knicks.
Are they trying to miss the playoffs? Like, that's my theory here now, is that they don't want the 8th seed.
That's basically what's happening. There's a GIF that's going around on NBA Reddit where it's just like a camera panning across the Bulls bench and everyone's super sad. Uh-huh. And that's the Bull season, and yet we're still terrified of these guys. Yeah, it's super weird.
Doug McDermott, no.
Yeah, with the Raptors, like, I think the less sharp thing is not really that much of a concern. I think it's just like you saw it against the Pelicans game. Second game of a back-to-back. You got Lowry and DeRozan. Less sharp. Like, they just want to take their foot off the pedal. They don't drive to the basket as much. They settle for more jump shots, and that's fine. That's fine. That's like a better maintenance. You're more likely to get injured or at least banged up if you drive to the hoop. So, yeah. They just changed their offense a little bit. But ultimately, I think come time for the playoffs, these guys are going to go all out.
Yeah. So all out is what Kyle Lowry was going against the Houston Rockets in a 112-109 loss. I don't understand why he played 42 minutes on the same day where I wrote a column which gave Dwayne Casey credit for actually managing the rest of his players, and he plays 42 minutes, gets ejected, 4 for 19, just a horrible game. No reason to even like this is a game where you just rest. It's like a back-to-back, I think, or on the front end of a back-to-back, and this is prime rest game. Yet Lowry just goes all out, and it just, especially after missing a game because of an elbow soreness or whatever. So like when I look at this and I'm like, what's the rationale behind this one? Or is there one even?
I mean, it's hard to say. You can't necessarily rest them all the time, but like the Rockets one would have been a particularly good game to rest. I thought the decision to hold them out against the Celtics was smart because the Celtics have all those perimeter guys. Like, you don't want Lowry, if he's slightly banged up, to be contending with Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley. Like, those guys are just, pests. But against Houston, that's exactly what you have in Patrick Beverley, who got under Lowry's skin almost immediately. And Lowry's not the kind of guy that, backs off from a challenge. We've seen him get into, not like fights or anything like that. It's just like competitive, really grimy games against like John Wall, against like Marcus Smart, like these types of really strong-nosed players. And he kind of got into Patrick Beverley, and it was just one of his worst games of the season, and there was really no need to play him that many minutes. But the Raptors were like kind of close, so yeah, I don't know. I guess you can't rest him for all the games, but
yeah, I guess that's the only. Yeah, and then we had the New Orleans game, which is just like they have everybody missing. I looked at their injury list, and it was never ending. And you kind of expected that to win, and that was a win. And prior to that, the Boston game was something that I covered for the site. And I saw I tend to watch the opposing feed all the time on League Pass, and I saw Tommy Heinsohn here, and he was irate most of the game, as he usually is. I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary. And there was that one play where Luis Scola kind of drew a charge on, I think, Amir Johnson on the break.
Yep.
And it was like a 50-50 call, like, charge foul. It's the hardest call in basketball. And Tommy just went off on it, and he wanted Luis Scola fined for like flopping and stuff. And I'm like, come on, man. That was the highlight of the game for me, to be honest with you. Like watching Tommy Heinsohn just complain about the refs time and time again. And what I've been noticing is a lot of the opposing announcers can't believe the calls that DeMar DeRozan gets on a nightly basis. And when you look at the replay, it's always generally a foul. Like it's never like he never gets a soft call for him. He generally gets fouled a lot, and he goes to the line. But the opposing announcers are in disbelief at how frequently he's able to like create contact with the defense.
Yeah, I mean that's a skill. That's a skill, and for someone like DeRozan, who's among the league leaders in drives per game, you're much more likely to get fouled driving to the basket, and he does that a lot. And even when he does things like his little post turnarounds and stuff like that, he still somehow draws a lot of contact. Yeah. But, I thought it was going to be pretty awkward because I don't know how much you watch of the Raptors broadcast now, but Jack Armstrong's been making a running bit where he's just making fun of Tommy Heinsohn.
Yeah, well, no. Tell us more. Tell us more.
Yeah, so, during boring points in the broadcast, Jack will just go into his Tommy Heinsohn impersonation and, put on that Bostonian accent and complain about calls.
Like,
so I thought it was going to be
reference to Tommy Heinsohn, or he just sounds like Tommy Heinsohn?
No, he specifically calls out Tommy.
Oh, okay.
Like he name drops him. I don't know if they're friends or anything, but yeah, I thought the Boston game was going to be weird because like everyone's sitting at that table.
Yeah, they were like 4 feet apart.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. So with the Boston game, the one thing to note was that Kyle Lowry didn't play here, so it kind of fell to DeMar DeRozan to pull the team together, and he struggled. He was 6 for 16 in this game, and Evan Turner. Jay Crowder didn't actually play this game, but Evan Turner and Bradley really bothered him, man. And a lot of the times he caught the ball like well far out than he would have liked to on his post ups, and on his drives he was held to the perimeter. It kind of saw shades of that Washington series where he was doing things that he didn't really want to do. He was forced into taking shots that were like plan B or C for him. And this game kind of felt that way for me. I know Lowry didn't play, and the Raptors didn't really have a lot of shooters. Patrick Patterson didn't play in this game, so he didn't really have any outlets. But it was a bit of a scary game from that perspective, where you saw DeMar DeRozan where he really didn't know how to score, and he ended up doing some pretty dumb stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point because it was a little reminder of the maturation that DeMar DeRozan has undergone this season, because this game, even though the final line looks all right, 21 points on 16 shots, DeMar DeRozan just wasn't very effective. He forced his shot a lot. We're talking a lot of those like pull-up long twos and stuff, and it's just, if you take away all the other options for DeMar DeRozan, he's going to settle back onto those old habits, because that's like his go-to moves aren't that great, especially when there's not a lot of spacing. And a lot of times DeRozan was out there with lineups that had like maybe one more shooter on the court. Like we're talking about like Terrence Ross, who went 5 of 18 that game, 1 of 6 from deep. This is it's worrying in a little bit, but it's also just like we know DeMar DeRozan has been much better this year. He's having a career high in shooting percentage. He's scoring more points than ever, and that's a testament to his improved efficiency. And just without Lowry, I mean, we kind of known this, but like DeMar DeRozan can't really carry the team by himself like the way Lowry could, because you saw it in a couple weeks back where DeRozan was rested against the Bucks, and then you saw Lowry come in, and the team just played kind of like, they weren't missing anything.
I think they had a season high in assists, maybe, or something close to it.
Yeah, 27. Yeah. 27 assists, which is kind of nuts for the Raptors, who averaged like 14 assists a game. The ball movement was ridiculous, but
is he a ball stopper? Would you classify him as a ball? Why is that? Do you really think he doesn't look to pass, or he should look to pass?
No, I think DeRozan's a willing passer. I just also think that he knows that he's the first option when he's on the court, so he will look for his own offense first, and he's not as like Lowry's a very, very smart, intuitive player where you'll see him making just really clever cuts and really clever passes, and it's really great when he plays with high IQ players, like even like Louis Scola. I mean, as much as we crap on Louis Scola, Scola is a very high IQ player, and you see Scola and Lowry always combine for like one or two really nice two-man game plays per game. And with DeRozan, he's willing to pass, and he's got a lot better playmaking, but at the same time, he just looks for his own shot first because that's who he is as a scorer. And so, yeah, when the ball gets swung to him, he kind of looks around, calls for the screen, dribbles out, and then tries to attack the basket. That's always going to be his first option. And being a ball stopper is not bad when you can score the ball efficiently. And this year he's done that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many. Just the game reminded me a little bit of like, oh my God, hopefully this doesn't happen in the playoffs. So I don't know how much you want to talk about the Boston game. I think I'm done with it, man, because there just wasn't much to it here.
Do you like DeLon Wright's performance? He got like 20 minutes off the bench.
He reminds me of I don't know, but he has this invisible wall at the shoulders, like near the elbows, which we can't penetrate right now effectively. But I think it'll come. I think he's a good ball handler. He's careful with the ball. He doesn't have the drive game right now. His jumper is just non-existent right now. So I think those are all things that we knew coming into the season, that he doesn't have those elements. I think he's been as advertised pretty much. He's a good ball handler. He's tall for his position. He can make passes over the defense. He's not a great shooter, and he's an okay driver, but not that great. So to him, like, I don't see him getting any burn in the playoffs, if that's what you're asking. And I think that his NBA start has been pretty much as expected. I'm not disappointed or amazed by what he's brought so far. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with most of those things. I thought that with Wright, I think the big key for him going forward is, you know how Norman Powell has that like fearlessness about him on offense, where I mean, he will drive to the basket, and once he makes up his mind that this is what's the right thing to do, he will drive all the way to the basket, or he will take that shot. And with DeLon Wright, you see a lot of hesitation. He's obviously a lot skinnier than Norm Powell is, so maybe he's not as confident about his ability to finish at the hoop, and he's not as good of a jump shooter as Norman Powell is. But I think once he sort of makes up his mind that, hey, listen, I can score, because right now he kind of is like a Ricky Rubio type of point guard. He doesn't nearly have that much vision as Rubio, who's like a prodigal passer, but he has that hesitation about him where he's, his primary defender knows he's probably not going to take the shot. And so once he's able to establish that he's, willing to score and he can score, then I think that opens up his passing game a lot more. I like his handles a lot, though, and I think his it was nice to see him track back on defensive rebounds and stuff. He seems like a decent defender. It's hard to read that with rookies, but yeah,
I don't see his lack of aggressiveness on offense being. I think that comes from him being a point guard in general. I think your approach to the game, where you're thrown in by your coach as a point guard, is different as if you're Norman Powell, who's kind of expected to be explosive, expected to drive to the rim. Whereas there's an expectation from DeLon Wright that he's going to run the offense. He's going to be more responsible. He's not going to look for his own shot as much as setting up his teammates. So I think you factor that in, and then you kind of understand his behavior on the court. It'd be interesting to see him as the off guard in a lineup, because he usually plays the point guard. So if you put him with like Corey Joe, who's handling the rock, or Kyle Lowry, or basically off the ball, you might see a different side of DeLon Wright than you see when he's being asked to quarterback the second unit.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to like evaluate a point guard so early, because they generally take a while to develop. And like, it's the hardest position to learn in the NBA. That's a fact for years, and you put on the added responsibility of running a team which isn't that great moving the ball anyways. Then you're gonna look a little off. So I give him a pass.
Yeah, and plus with the Raptors offense, the way it's structured and based on the personnel that we currently have, you basically need to be a combo guard.
Yeah,
like everybody needs to be a combo guard. Like Lowry's got combo guard skills. Corey Joseph has developed really nicely into like being able to play off another point guard. You see him like just driving relentlessly to the hoop when it's like swung to the weak side. And obviously DeRozan has gotten better with his point guard skills. So basically DeLon Wright needs to follow suit.
Yeah. The guy I have been impressed with is Jason Thompson, who just comes in and just looks like he's been here all season. He's only playing like 17 minutes a game, which is something. But just his aggressiveness on the boards, in the right positions, he's been knocking down a couple threes here and there. He just looks engaged as part of the game, and you would think that he's been here really from training camp.
Yeah. The thing is with me, like for some reason, Jason Thompson to me doesn't pass the eye test. I don't know what it is about him.
What
I think it's just like.
What do you mean by that?
I don't mean this to say it in a, like, okay.
So
there'll be times in the game where he's asked to, where he's sort of asked to like stretch out of his comfort zone, like make a really quick rotation or like, make a tough catch in traffic and go for a nice finish potentially for an and one. And I just, those times you really see his limitations as a player. Because he doesn't really give you anything flashy, anything extraordinary, which is not something you should ever expect out of someone you picked up, at the post waiver deadline.
Yeah.
But no, and then when I look at his stat line though afterwards, it's always solid. Like, how can you really argue with 50% shooting? I mean, he's rebounding at a solid clip, which is exactly what the Raptors need out of him, and he's actually hit some jumpers.
Yeah. Project this into the playoffs, and you got a 6'11" guy off the bench who, if JV gets in foul trouble or if Patterson gets in foul trouble, who can fill in and give you some and fill that gap in. So that's something that we didn't have pre-trade deadline, and now we have that. So I think this might be like a significant signing depending on who we play in the playoffs and depending on how well JV or Biyombo or whatever do, because you're going to pick up fouls in the playoffs and you need that depth off the bench. So he gives that. It's. I'm not saying it's a make or break signing by any means, but I think he'll definitely play in the postseason, and and that's basically it. And that's more than what you could have said for the guy who he replaced. So that I think overall this has been a great move.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Anthony Bennett is just there was no reliability at all. Whereas with Jason Thompson, you come in and he's posting literally the same per 36 averages as he has all his entire career.
Yeah.
Like a double-double per 36, 50% shooting, and just like decent, Like he's not going to be anything extraordinary, but you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. So.
And I find that he can defend without fouling, which is a bit of a skill. Like he's had a couple of high foul games, but generally I find that he's able to move his feet well and contest shots without getting like just called for hacks.
Fun fact: he averaged 8 fouls per game, per 36 with the Warriors, which is kind of ridiculous.
But that was not the team for him, though.
That wasn't definitely not the team for him.
That was not the. I think I saw like one game of the Warriors where he was in it, and he just stood out like a. It was basically having JV on the Warriors. It looked.
Oh no.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's. I think that's enough for the weekly talk, and I don't know what the upcoming schedule looks like, but before that, let's take some Twitter questions after we hear some words from our esteemed sponsor, Goldfinger Law.
Here's the scenario. Your insurance company is denying your long-term disability claim despite the fact that you've paid premiums for years and your own doctor insists that you're not well enough to work. If this sounds familiar, call Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. You'll speak with me, Brian Goldfinger, a licensed and experienced lawyer who practices exclusively on behalf of accident victims, disability claimants, and their families. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Rapcast. Will's with me here, and we're talking Raptors and taking some Twitter questions. But before we get to all that, Will, during the break, asked a profound question of, is Norman Powell our best ever second-round pick? Will, to answer that question, there's only one way to do it, and we have to review who our second-round picks were. And we'll do this in a really, really fast way. Okay? All right? Here we go. 1995, Jimmy King. Played a couple of games, not really.
It's a great name.
Yeah, awesome name, Fab Five, all that. No second round picks a couple of years, and then in 1998, Tyson Wheeler, forget it. 1999, Alexander Radojevic, we had some high hopes for him. He was at number 2. He was number 12, so forget about that. 2000, DeAndre Hullett, don't even know him.
He didn't even play in the NBA.
Yeah, and then
he went to the College of the Segoyas.
There you go. 2003, Ramon Van de Haar, who I remember seeing one clip of. He was a 52nd pick, and there was like one clip of him where he his highlight clip at the draft was him hitting a shot from the corner which grazed the backboard and went in.
There's not many players that Basketball Reference doesn't have a page for, and Ramon is one of them.
Yeah. 2004, Albert Mireles. Don't know. Okay. Now here's a couple of competitors here now. 2005, Roko Ukic at 41 and Uros Slokar at 58.
I had high hopes for Roko.
Roko had this awesome game against the Spurs in that one year where he was called up and playing with the Will Solomon. Oh God, dark days, eh?
Seriously.
And he had one game. So Roko Ukic is so far the best second round pick we have. Did you agree right now?
Definitely.
At
he was a tall point guard. He had skills.
He was like a DeLon Wright.
Oh no.
Yeah, I remember we had this writer called Scott Phillips, All Traps, and he had a nickname for Roko. It was the horse face killer.
Oh no! Hey, I just looked up that career game you talked about against the Spurs. Yeah. 22 points on 9 of 13 shooting. That's not bad.
Yeah. I remember that game. It was
that was a 2-point win. Holy!
It was huge in the fourth quarter. If you can look that up, he had some big hoops. And then, my God, I've been watching the Raptors for a long time. If I remember that.
Yeah. Wow. Jeez.
And then in 2006, now here's some more interesting stuff. PJ Tucker, who wasn't that great with the Raptors, drafted at 35, but he did have a pretty good NBA career and is still having one with the Suns and all that. Right. So it's an interesting one.
He's definitely the best one, but. He flamed out so quickly and then went to play in Israel, Ukraine, Greece, Germany before coming back to the Suns.
And then also that year we had Edvin Bavčić, who I don't know. And then there's a few years with nothing in there. And then 2012 we had Quincy Acey at 37, who had a cup of coffee. He wasn't too bad.
He's still in the league. Congrats to him.
Yeah. Tomislav Zubčić, who's still in the league, I believe. Right?
No? I mean, he's just one of those guys that teams hold the draft rights to, so they can trade in fake trades. Like that's what we traded for Luke Ridnour, I'm pretty sure.
Right. And then we go to 2014 with DeAndre Daniels and Xavier Thames, and that's basically it. And then you had Norman Powell.
Wow.
So, like the only guys that kind of come close is PJ Tucker, if you think about it, but he's not really a Raptor, but he's been the best player. And Roko Ukic and maybe Quincy Acey. Compare those three to Norman Powell, Will, and tell us where you rank them.
Oddly enough, I still have high hopes for Quincy Acey, man. Yeah, he's plays hard, rebounds well, versatile,
would you rather
can
have
shoot
Quincy
the jumper
Acey
a little
or Norman
bit.
Powell on this team?
I mean, I would rather have Norman Powell, no question. But
who do you think will have the better career when it's all said and done, Quincy Acey or Norman Powell?
Man, I could see like Quincy Acey carving out a Darrell Arthur type niche. A lot of upside there. And Norman Powell, I don't know, man. Norman Powell, wings are so much more useful in today's NBA, and so much more cherished. So I feel like Norman Powell's really established himself as like a guy who can do things on the court and not crap his pants, which is huge.
Norman Powell our best second round pick ever?
It's shaping up that way, but I think currently the leader in the clubhouse is still Quincy.
Okay, all right, there you have it.
So sad, man.
Quincy Acey, best second round pick.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at that history though, I mean, of the second round picks, you could have put in no effort for all these years in drafting number in the second round, and you'd be like no worse off.
Yep. Seriously, man. I'm really curious with this Ramon Van de Haar guy.
He has no basketball reference page.
I gotta look him up. Yep. I'm finding him on Facebook.
Google Images yields nothing.
This guy didn't even exist.
He did not exist. Yeah, we have.
They just made up a guy.
I just have this one memory of him hitting that side of the backboard before it goes in.
2003.
All right.
Jeez.
Hey, we got to get to some questions, and before we take some Twitter questions, we have a special question from a Patreon. Patreon basically is like if you want to support Raptors Republic, go to patreon.com/RaptorsRepublic, and you can help us out with some with some pledges and so on. And one person, Jonathan Leland, wrote this as he made his pledge, and he goes, he's got a question for us, and he goes, when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of Damon Stoudemire and thought he was one of the best players in the league while with the Raptors. Looking back as an adult, I can see he wasn't really as godlike as I thought back then, but my question is, how good was he really in terms of pure ability and effectiveness, and do you think he underachieved after leaving the Raps or overachieved with the Raptors? Again, just on pure effectiveness and ability, where would you rank him all time in terms of Raptors point guards? That's a good question, man. That's a really...
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought he had some very good years with the Raptors. It was only like, what, 2.5 years?
Yeah.
But did he win Rookie of the Year?
His first year, he won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess his career is weird in that like his first 3 years were kind of his best, and he just kind of tailed off afterwards. But while with the Raptors, he was, I mean, I would say he's definitely the second best point guard after Kyle Lowry. Unless you want to put Mike James's one season up there. Mike James was amazing that year.
Yeah,
shot 44% from deep.
No, I see. First of all, when he got drafted, he was booed because everybody wanted Ed O'Bannon, who flamed out in his NBA career. And Damon came in, he was undersized, was basically a very effective scorer, and had a very nice looking jumper from mid range. The 3-pointer wasn't really too effective from there, but. Let me just look up what he shot. No, he was 40% his first year, and then he was 35 his second year. So he was a good 3-point shooter too, good scorer. I would liken him to like a modern day. I might get killed for this, like Isaiah Thomas, like somebody who could really drive to the rim whenever he wanted to, but maybe had a better jumper, was really quick, and nobody could really stay with him, like in front of him, if he really wanted to drive. He was like 4th in the league in assists, like overall. While playing
he played a lot of minutes.
While playing on a really crappy team. I think his assists per game, if I can look that up, is like what's
9 per game.
It's 9 per game on a Raptor team that was no good.
Exactly, yeah.
While scoring 20 points. Right? So that's if you put those things together, you're seeing a guy like score really efficiently, distribute the ball really well on a team which is basically shit.
Yeah, and the other way to look at it is this. Imagine if the Raptors had taken Ed O'Bannon or something like that. The Raptors' best player that season would have been, like, if it wasn't for Damon, it would have been, like, Sharon Wright, Tracy Murray.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even palatable as a team, period.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't have that. I guess, like, Tracy Murray cannot be your top guy. And so, at least... he wasn't the perfect sort of leading man, but like you needed something.
Yeah.
And he was something.
And if you look at the guys ahead of him in assists, it was Mark Jackson, who was having career years, John Stockton, Hall of Famer, Kevin Johnson, Hall of Famer, Jason Kidd, Hall of Famer, and Rod Strickland in that 1 year where he was just unbelievably amazing and got that big deal right after. So he was in good company there, and behind him were Tim Hardaway, Nick Van Exel. So he was an elite company in terms of point guards, both scoring and distribution. The second part of the question was, like, did he overachieve with the Raptors? No, I think he was fine, but he had the same bug as Vince Carter, where like he wanted to go play somewhere else, or he wanted to go play in his hometown of Portland. But once he got there were too many distractions. The team fit wasn't good. It's a classic, like, hey, if you had stayed with the Raptors and been patient, in a couple of years, you would have been partnered with Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, and that would have been the dynamic that would be unreal. So it's like people talk about like, oh, we missed out on T-Mac and Vince. But we also missed out on Damon because they were all part of the same window, I guess, of NBA players. If they were all together, it would have been something like fantastic. So I don't think he overachieved with the Raptors. It's just that when he went to Portland, there were too many distractions there, playing in his hometown. The team fit wasn't there, and it just didn't work out. It was similar to what happened with Vince once he left Toronto.
Yeah, well, hey, that was the Jailblazers, man. He became a key member of the Jailblazers.
Yeah, and
so
he actually got arrested for like smoking pot or whatever.
Yeah, in Portland? Come on.
Yep.
That's hard to do. That's hard to do.
So there you go. That's well, not arrested or charged or whatever. I'm not sure.
Okay. Arrested. Yeah.
So I think hopefully we answered that question. All time in terms of Raptors point guards, I'd say behind Kyle Lowry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Isaiah Thomas comp is really solid actually. Yeah. Modern day Isaiah Thomas, not Detroit Pistons Isaiah Thomas, not the guy who drafted him, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. So and credit to Isaiah Thomas for actually drafting him because he took him in the face of a lot of pressure. There was the whole city wanted Ed O'Bannon because he was, I think, UCLA product, yeah.
Yeah, sure, something like that.
And yeah, good on him. So Damon was great, and in his 2 years here, he was like his head got kind of turned in his third year, and with with free agency and all that. But in his 2 years, he was a model citizen, and he played really hard, and it was really fun to watch.
He's a coach now.
Yeah, he's been an assistant coach for the longest time. Where is he now?
He's at some college school,
Yeah.
I think Pacific.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Will, I'm going to hand the hosting of this podcast over to you as we take some Twitter questions.
All right. Thanks to everyone for responding to at Raptors Public. We put out some questions, and here they are. So first one from Andre at Asapov_AO. Why people want to replace Ross with Powell? Can't they coexist? Second question, who to draft? Okay, let's just tackle the first one. The second one, it's too far off. We don't even know where the draft pick is going to be. So, yeah, I don't know, man. What do you think about Ross versus Powell?
Is it really a versus though? Like,
yeah,
why does
they
it
do
have to be a
different
versus?
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's a versus. I think one guy is there for some quick scoring, and the other guy is there to spread the floor. I think if you want if you want to put out a really offensive lineup, you might have Powell in there, go small and take out your power forward, and have Powell in there and go really small and have a bunch of offense. And Ross is more of a mainstay in the rotation because he's our best 3-point shooter. And I don't see them competing for minutes. I guess they could compete for minutes because they're like a part of the 2-3 zone, I guess. But I don't see them in direct competition. How about you?
Yeah, I think the thing with Ross is just like he doesn't necessarily look like he's trying. Like he's such a, and sometimes I would argue he's not fully engaged in the game the way Norman Powell is. And so I think the difference in energy and activity level makes people sort of really favor Norman Powell's game. But Ross is very, very important to this team. He, like you said, he's one of the best. He's one of two spot up options. Like in terms of like getting a guy to run around a screen, catch the ball, shoot the ball. It's just him and Larry. That's it. Unless you wanted DeRozan to do some pin downs and some long twos, but that's not as effective as 3-point shooters like Ross. So it's not a versus. I don't think so. I mean, once DeMarre Carroll comes back to the lineup, and we'll get to that in a second. Norman Powell's kind of staple to the bench, probably.
And I think if there's one thing that history has shown with Dwayne Casey is that he will not play guys who can't shoot at the wing, other than DeMar DeRozan, who obviously is one of the stars of the team. He's not going to play guys like James Johnson or people who can't shoot. And unfortunately for Norman Powell, he's still a guy who has a suspect outside jumper, and that alone will make Dwayne Casey think twice, maybe thrice before he puts him in the lineup in a playoff series.
Yeah, the one thing I'm happy about with Powell though is it's a real difference when James Johnson's in because they've been sort of splitting small forward duties. Yeah. Norman Powell is doing exactly what he's supposed to. He's either catching the ball and shooting it in the corner for 3, or he's driving to the basket immediately. There's no thought process of let me take a couple dribbles, let me get the Bismack Biyombo screen that leads to nowhere. That James Johnson always calls for. He doesn't bog down the offense, which is huge. It's good that he's decisive. He's just got to get better at actually executing those plays.
Yeah. And when you look at his form, he's shooting 29% from 3. There's nothing wrong with his shooting form. I think he's okay there, and I think in a matter of time he'll up that. It's just because 3-point shooting wasn't a focus for him in college. I mean, I didn't follow his college career closely, but when you look at his YouTube, when you look at when you talk to Steve Gennaro, who followed him, he's a UCLA guy. 3-point shooting wasn't really as valued in college for him, so he never really worked on it. But the guy has great work ethic, and in a couple of years, I fully expect that 3-point percentage to go up because he knows he needs that to stay in the league and be effective in the league, and you can see he's a determined guy who's going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, man, we're very high on Norman Powell. There's some other questions, some Carlo Albino.
Go for it.
All right. He just has questioned Norman Powell. I guess people are just really high on Norman Powell right now, and they should be. He's the best second-round pick the Raptors ever had.
Wow.
Kind of.
Yeah, okay.
On pace to be.
Okay.
Which is not saying a lot. He's on pace to be better than Quincy AC. Oh, God, this Raptors is sad. All right, next one. Thomas Willett. At TN Willett. what's more important, resting players or utilizing games with the starters to get Carroll acclimatized? Should he be okay?
I think you got to get Carroll's conditioning up to speed. He's been out for so long that his conditioning is more important to me than his integration. I know Tim wrote a piece about this a couple of days ago and saying how it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I think he's got to get up to like game speed, and that can happen by him playing with a bench and so on and so forth. And I think when you look at his role, he's a defensive stopper. You don't necessarily need to be that integrated into the team to be a defensive stopper. I remember that talk early in the season when he was like, "Oh, I'm going to see more of the ball. I've been promised more of a bigger offensive role." Do you remember that? Remember that whole?
Yeah, he did a little bit of that to start the season.
So
he just looked awkward.
Like that has gone away now. Like that's not even on the table anymore. Like he's coming into the postseason being a defensive stopper and a spot up shooter. There's no more like we're going to run our offense through DeMarre Carroll every 8th possession, because that's just that element of his game has just been put to bed. We'll revisit that next training camp. Right now it's about defense and spot up shooting, and I don't think that takes that much to integrate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The scheme is not going to be too difficult for him to pick up on, especially since that's kind of the role he's played basically all his life. But the knee injury concerns me because, like you said, with conditioning, he's been off his feet for a long time, at least for athletic activities. So we can't really be sure about what his physical conditioning is going to be, and if he's not going to be at full speed, like when you think of defensive stoppers, they're all, high energy, fast, athletic, and Carroll is that when healthy. It's just, I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, I think it will still be important for in a couple games to get him get his feet wet. I mean, to get him set with playing with the starters. I think, given the way Dwayne Casey has handled his injuries and stuff, I could see Dwayne Casey bring him off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way, because he likes the starting lineup the way it is. He doesn't like to mess with too many things. I mean, Luis Scola's still there in the starting lineup, although he's been much better of late. He's having 15 points per game over the last 5 games. Has that changed
your opinion on what we should do with him in the playoffs at all?
No, this is ridiculous. Okay, but he's shooting 63% from deep in the last 5 games on 6 attempts per game. It's nuts.
Don't care. Thanks, but I don't care.
Yeah, maybe if he's fresh, he might give you something, which is nice. He's a high upside veteran.
If the other team is seeing Luis Scola shoot like more than like 5 or 6 times in a game,
they're thrilled.
They're happy. They're like, okay, this is good. We can live with this. Just leave him open.
Yeah, seriously, man. When Luis Scola scores, it's like highway robbery. I'm just like, all right, let's just get away with this. Let's put in Patrick Patterson before it's too late.
Hey, while we're talking about DeMarre Carroll, man, there was another guy on Twitter who reached out on my account,
cool.
He goes, he was questioning where DeMarre Carroll is during the game because he never sees him on the bench and he doesn't travel with the team. And Blake responded and goes, well, he's not traveling with the team and he's at the facility working out during the day, but he doesn't attend the games. Do you feel that's I don't know. Am I making too much, or is this guy making too much of it?
I don't know. It's just a public. I guess it's just a public show, but like you see DeMarre Carroll all the time in those open gym things where they're in the locker rooms and stuff, and you see him at the 905 game. He was out and about an All-Star weekend. I'm sure he's still around the team. I don't know.
All right. Move on to the next question, Will.
All right, cool. Next one from Sniper Hyperbole.
Nice.
Need a progress report on DeLon Wright finally getting some minutes. I guess we talked about DeLon Wright, so...
DeLon Wright, give him a grade. What's his season been so far?
Pretty sure it's incomplete. I don't think the Raptors anticipated that they were going to get another point guard like Corey Joseph, and I don't think they fully anticipated that Corey Joseph was going to be this good this quickly. And DeLon Wright has just been caught by the wayside because like you're not really ever going to bench one of Corey Joseph or Kyle Lowry for DeLon Wright, and he doesn't really have 2 guard skills yet. So it's just been a development season for him. I guess we've seen a lot of him in a D League, and he's mostly thrived in the D League. He's had some shortcomings. I mean, this is all based on reading Blake, which is all I ever consume of the D League. Mm-hmm. But incomplete for now.
Yeah. So we ran a poll in the preseason, which asked like how much DeLon Wright would play in this year, and 17. We got a lot of votes, like over 1,000, and it was 17% said 0 to 5 minutes. 50% said 5 to 10 minutes a game. And then 29% said 10 to 15 minutes a game. And then 8 people said more than 20 minutes a game.
That's ridiculous.
And he's been playing 5.4 minutes a game and has only featured in 22 games. So people had some big expectations in terms of how many minutes this guy would play. And as you said, I think Corey Joseph being this good has affected his season. So if you gauge him against the expectations set by this poll or what fans thought he would contribute this year, he obviously hasn't met those. But at the same time, I don't think we put him in a position where he could meet those just by sending him to the D League and limiting his playing time and so on. So I think if you evaluate his season based on like expectations versus reality, I think the expectations were too high. But when you look at his season just in like on its own, on how he's progressed as a player, and you look at his strengths and weaknesses coming into the year and how he's performed against them, I think you'll find that he's been pretty much as expected. It's just that the minutes haven't been there.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. All right, next one from Keith Wall, frequent contributor Keith Wall to these questions. Nets, Wizards, Bulls all beat the Raptors bad over the past years. Look at them now. Hashtag Raptors curse.
Is that a question in there?
No, I think he's just like, shitting on teams that have shit on the Raptors.
Nets, Raptors, Wizards. I don't know what the question is. Yeah, I agree with.
Nets, Wizards, Bulls, like who have all beat the Raptors bad over the last couple of years. It's the Raptors curse.
Well, the curse
with the Bulls,
the curse is that whenever we've had a higher seed, we've played well against the lower seed during the regular season. But for some unknown reason, the lower seed has always been favored in the playoffs because people just don't believe in the Raptors for whatever reason. And depending on who you face this year, like I think if we face Indiana this year, I think we'll be favored and be heavy favorites. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, or what team would we face between Chicago, Indiana, Washington, or Detroit, where we would be considered the underdogs? Like not just like by the odds makers, but by like the NBA experts who go, they don't have it. Like, do you see any team there where you wouldn't like favor the Raptors, like just based on pure ability?
Based on pure ability? Okay, here's the thing. I feel like the national media really, really loves the Bulls year after year, regardless of what's gone on that year. And I think that, when the question is posited to the analysts, like, where can you see the upset? And everyone likes to pick a good upset. They're all gonna pick Bulls over the Raptors because they're gonna say, well, they've lost 9 in a row to the Bulls, and Bulls have a lot of talent. Like when they're healthy, you got Jimmy Butler and Pau Gasol and Derrick Rose, and the Raptors, they've lost in the playoffs. So you're gonna hear this narrative ad nauseum if they play the Bulls, and the Raptors players themselves are gonna be reminded of it all the time. It's just like how the Paul Pierce thing became like a whole story until Gravis Vasquez had to speak out for the team and say, stop talking about it. We got to literally focus on not getting swept, and then they got swept.
Yeah, but the Bulls thing is going to be it's going to be tough to get that matchup. Like, I mean, they're 2 games back of the playoffs period, and then they got the Pistons and the Pacers to jump over to get to 7.
I wish the Pacers would continue winning though. Like, the Pacers lost to the Nets last night.
Yeah.
Sergei Karasev had 17 points.
But again,
Sergei Karasev's not even a real human.
It's going to be the Pacers or the Pistons at this point. Like there's like a 95% chance it's going to be one of those two. Like,
I'm completely fine with that matchup.
I think in either of those matchups, you would, even an NBA expert or whatever, Kenny Smith or whatever it is, would pick the Raptors over them. Like those two teams have no playoff history, no pedigree where you would even pick them as an upset. They have Paul George, and that's where it kind of ends.
Yeah, and then Paul George really hasn't been that effective against the Raptors this season. The Raptors have, like DeRozan did a great job shutting down Paul George last time they played. Yeah. Paul George is like 6 of 24 from the field. Yeah,
throw in DeMarre Carroll there, and you get another weapon to stop him. So I just feel kind of confident playing any of those teams, 7th or 8th. And I just don't like Del Curry. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but
no, it's fine. Go for it.
Remember when he goes? I think 2-3 weeks ago he went.
He said he'd prefer to play the Raptors in the first round.
What a dick. Yeah.
You cannot say anything bad about the first family of basketball. Oh, God. The Currys, they're infallible right now.
I hate them.
Yeah,
I hate everybody who's not on the Raptors.
Come on, he's a former Raptor.
It just doesn't matter.
All those pictures of him and Steph shooting around at the
every
ACC.
Every time they play those, I don't get the awe moment. I get like, oh, fuck this guy.
you're like, oh crap, we are 2 picks away from getting Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so any more questions for this?
Yeah, we got a lot more. You're tired of it, but we'll try to speed up. Okay. Noreen Ramsey asks, will the Cavs roller coaster of emotion, see aggression, elation, frustration, etc., help or hinder them in the playoff series? I don't think it'll affect the Cavs that much. As long as LeBron's like basically, if he's gonna turn on like playoff LeBron mode, it's pretty much over for the rest of the conference. But I mean, it's probably not fun to be the rest of the Cavaliers right now. Sorry,
he's been throwing some pretty crazy dunks of late.
He has been.
Yesterday.
He's just killing it, man. He had this like reverse dunk in the lane against the Nets, a game which they lost. Yeah. Seriously, they've had some embarrassing losses. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, let's just walk through. Who's going to stop the Cavs? Pistons, Pacers, Hornets, Miami. Like I'd say of all the teams, I would even ahead of the Hawks, I'd say Miami is the only one that could potentially kill them.
This is what I want to see in terms of the Raptors potentially somehow making the finals and then getting swept in the finals. If the Bulls are their first round opponent, I think that the Bulls can really grind them down because, like, you know, Tibbs is gone, but the players are still the same. They know how to play LeBron. Jimmy Butler is as tough of a defender you can put on LeBron as anybody. Well, I guess Kawhi, but still. So, you know, maybe they grind him down a little bit. Second round, the whole emotional thing of facing the Heat, you know, all the storylines they're going to have to deal with. I think that's going to really, that'd be great if they could play the Heat in the second round. And then hopefully by then, well, not hopefully, I'm not hoping for injuries, but like, you know, there's chances are not that bad that one of Kyrie or Kevin Love might be hurt.
Yeah.
And then it's just LeBron versus the whole Raptors team. And the Raptors are built solidly enough. They have enough wing defenders. Even a guy like James Johnson, like there's enough guys there that, you know, if Lowry has like a ridiculous series, yeah, it's possible. Yeah. It's like a 10% chance.
Do you think the Raptors will hang the division banner?
Oh, 100%. The last game I went to, I took a picture of it. There's an actual like space already like there. There's like
maybe it's for the Eastern Conference Championship and not the division.
Yeah. Oh. Well, we'll see. I mean, hey, that's actually something to hang. That's actually something to hang.
The Eastern Conference, for sure. But another division banner, really?
Yes, especially since you're not getting anything for winning the division anymore.
In a year where the bottom 3 teams in the East are the Knicks, Nets, and Sixers, who are all playing the Atlantic.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right. Let's move on.
Listener, tell us: should the Raptors hang up the Atlantic Division banner? Poll question.
God, it's sad. It's super sad. Actually, what do you think of LeBron's like passive aggression in the media right now?
I think, you know what, man. Don't get me like, you know, when you skip college, you skip basically a lot of your formative years, like that process that people go through, college or university or whatever you call it. You go through you develop as a person, you develop this maturity within you, and a lot of these NBA players like don't have that. Like LeBron's one of them. He just never had that experience, and I really think he's like deep down he's a bit of a baby, and he needs these like outlets of like passive aggressiveness or rage or whatever it is to just like normalize himself. And I think it's totally stupid. Like he should have, like, he knew exactly when you unfollow somebody on Twitter, it's going to cause a rage. He knows that how much ESPN scrutinized him. He knew exactly what he was doing. And then to play it off as a no comment, it's like, dude, I mean, like, it's a dumb question. Yeah, it shouldn't be a story, but he manufactured it, and then he can't just pretend that, oh, it's not a story by saying no comment. It's a story, and you created it, and now you wanted this drama around you, now you got it.
Yeah, it feels like there's like less and less people on his side. Like ever since the letter to go back to Cleveland, his Q rating has just been falling steadily.
And like there was I think on our NBA, I was reading some quote that, you know, there's some former NBA players who just said that like he's got like 1 foot out the door in Cleveland already. And you're gonna see another Comic Sans letter coming at some point.
If he leaves Cleveland again, I would actually be back in on LeBron. If he left Cleveland again, just how ruthless that would be, and how much he would have to sacrifice based on, you know, what little public favor he still has. All right.
Here's a quote I found. It was Antonio Daniels who goes, "I would hate to be in a locker room with a guy who has 1 foot out the door already, but is constantly talking about leadership and is constantly talking about the process of becoming a championship caliber team.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're talking about the same Antonio Daniels who got crossed up twice by Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
Good
Lord
player.
Milan.
Good overall player, by the way. Had a decent
Yeah,
career.
decent backup point guard. He's like Tyronn Lue. Lord Milanlo? I don't know. Sorry.
Say his handle, man. You got to say his handle.
Oh, man. They got to click through and everything. Dare to Milan. All right. Big Milan fan, AC. I'm assuming. Assuming he's back next game, how difficult would it be for Carroll to find his rhythm with 10 games left in the season before the playoffs? Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. It's conditioning, I think, is the biggest key right now.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about this already.
Get fit. All right. Next one at H Wall Sports. Freaky Friday body switch, Masai. What's your first 3 moves in the offseason? The Raps lose in the first round and make the conference, and if they make the conference final. So I guess there's 2 scenarios there.
My, it's a lot of questions in here.
Jeez, yeah.
Losing the first round, fire the coach.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Dwayne Casey. You probably have to jettison Dwayne Casey.
Yeah.
And then you probably have a really difficult decision to make with DeMar DeRozan. I think ultimately, if you can, you re-sign him, keep the asset, and then you try to sort of flip it.
I don't think it's a question because I think the way it looks like it, at least from the outside, Lowry and DeRozan are kind of joined at the hip.
Yeah.
Like if you get rid of DeRozan, I think Lowry's not going to take it too well. And
also Lowry's a free agent. He has a player option, so he's going to become a free agent in 2017. If you trade DeRozan, what are you really doing? You probably need to trade Lowry as well.
Yeah,
and you could probably get a lot. I don't know, but then I don't think they'll flame out in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I don't know the top 3 moves, but I think you definitely gotta, I guess, fire the coach, re-sign DeRozan, and then I don't know what the third move is.
Yeah, and if they make the conference final, you just try to keep everybody, man.
Yeah,
that's really it. And if there's a trade to be made out there to upgrade the power forward position, you try to do it. It's basically like at the trade deadline.
I signed Bismack Biyombo is probably the third thing.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to do though for the cap reasons.
Yeah,
we've written about that a couple times now. Okay, Keith Wall again asks, really high on Bryce Johnson, the power forward at UNC. I don't know. What do you think? He's on the Raptors radar. I'm team Domantas Sabonis. You seen this kid? Sabonis, the son?
I'm not in a position to I'm intelligently comment on college players. I could say a few things, but I'm not gonna make a fool of myself more than I already do.
Yeah, Bryce Johnson is just super athletic. He actually reminds me a lot of like a young Tyrese Thomas almost, but hopefully with his priorities, a little bit more aligned with the teams. That's all. But yeah, I don't know.
What's his
power
wingspan,
forward in the
though?
draft.
What's his wingspan? Is it 7'6"?
It's probably 7 foot plus.
Right.
Masai's a sucker for wingspan.
Yeah.
Okay, next one from @Lock5H. If you put Prime Shaq on the Raptors on this team, who would you take in a 7-game series, Raptors or Warriors?
If I put Prime, I don't think Prime Shaq's. Oh God, that's a good question, man.
Yeah.
What do you think? Let you go first.
I mean, okay, so the Warriors are obviously unstoppable right now, but they've never had to play a post presence like Shaq. I don't even know how they would handle it. You would have to play Andrew Bogut all the time.
Yeah.
And then Festus Ezeli behind him. But honestly, Shaq would just put all those guys in foul trouble.
Right.
All of them will be in foul trouble. You're gonna have to constantly double the post all the time. And the Raptors have enough shooters to put around Shaq that I feel like the Raptors could take the Warriors if they had prime. We're talking prime Shaq.
Prime Shaq. Yeah, I guess if it's really prime Shaq, then I think you take the Raptors, because the Raptors, even without prime Shaq, should have won at least one of the 2 games if it weren't for bad officiating against the Warriors. And you throw the X factor for prime Shaq, and remember, prime Shaq is a guy who is essentially unstoppable, and whose only weakness is free throw shooting.
Yeah, I guess you would have to hack Shaq all the time, but again, you're putting your team in significant foul trouble.
Yeah.
And you can't do that the whole game.
Yeah. And given today's the way they call fouls today,
yeah,
prime Shaq played in an era where he got fouled 65 times a game, and they called 10 of them.
Exactly.
In today's game, he's getting to he's spending his everybody's in foul trouble.
Yeah, and I think defensively, I think that's a big issue. The Warriors might downsize, which is just insane against Shaq. But I guess if you're going to intentionally foul, then you can at least downsize. Then you just put Shaq on Draymond Green and let Draymond shoot. I think Shaq shooting free throws, 2 free throws every single time, is better offense than Draymond Green shooting threes.
Yeah.
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 Right.
I
Interesting question, though.
That's good question.
Okay, Raps fan for life. If Carroll's not healthy for the playoffs, how would you use him? I think I'd bring him off the bench and then try to roll with the Norman Powell situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's coming off the bench. I think the only argument against that is that if you're facing a elite 3 like Paul George, why would you not want to put your best defender on him?
Yeah, it's just a question of, like, DeMarre Carroll, obviously when healthy, is the best defender, but if he's not healthy, then...
I mean, I'm assuming he's healthy. Like, if he's coming back, I'm assuming he's 100%.
Yeah,
and
that's
he's
true. That's true.
So if you got 100%... Like, the only reason you would bring him off the bench is not to disrupt continuity.
Yeah, which,
right?
I mean, hey, Dwayne Casey's huge on that.
Okay, so if you're facing Paul George in the first round...
Yeah.
Do you really want DeMar DeRozan guarding him and like spending energy on defense, or would you just like make some changes and get DeMar Carroll in?
That's rough because like I feel like DeMar DeRozan's going to expend energy anyway because if he's not guarding Paul George, he's guarding Monte Ellis.
All right.
And Monte Ellis is a high activity guy, so you at least have to like move around a ton, right?
Yeah, it's not prime Monte Ellis though, man. This is not that
that's
Monte
true.
Ellis.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. Okay, next one at Sayu Boy. All right. Anyone else worried about Kyle Lowry's recent struggles from the free throw shooting to missing his usual transition threes? Hashtag deja vu. It's not hashtag deja vu, guys. Like, let's just chill. He's had 3 rough games. That's it in a row. Where, I mean, admittedly, he's been pretty bad. He is, what is he shooting? He's shooting like 60% from the line and like 16% from deep and 25% overall. But again, it's a 3-game stretch, man. Lowry's fine. Seriously, this is not deja vu.
Well,
Lowry basically fell off for half a year last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 3 games.
But you see where he's coming from though. Slight niggle of an injury, high minutes.
That's true. But the Raptors also have the luxury of resting him. And honestly, they've Dwayne Casey has done a really good job of being open to resting his players. He's rested Lowry twice in the last month, especially in these back-to-back situations. And I think you'll just see more of that because the Raptors' schedule really opens up. And also, they're basically locked into the 2 seed or better.
Hey, fun fact about Kyle Lowry, coming from a Patrick Patterson Snapchat page, where last night, flying out of New Orleans, they actually were watching the Villanova-Kansas game, and Lowry, who's a former, he's from Villanova, but he went to school there. They actually had to delay the flight because Lowry was watching it on his phone, and he didn't want the internet connection disrupted, so they waited for the game to end before they could fly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Kyle Lowry holding the plane back.
He's that important. I would like to think the Raptors had reliable Wi-Fi on their plane, but you never know. Also, hey, shout out to Villanova for playing off the upside, man.
Okay, come on, the Kansas guy here. But hey, before let's not talk about Villanova, Kansas, please, Will.
All right. Shout out to Ryan in my Anaconda Don't, or whatever his last name is.
Kyle Lowry minutes last year versus this year.
Yeah.
He's playing almost 3 minutes more this year than he was last year. So sometimes maybe the talk of rest that we're saying isn't really, it's not really there. It's more of a, like he's rested a couple of games, but overall his usage has actually gotten higher.
That also speaks to the bench, though. I mean, like last year, the offense can still survive without Lowry out there because you have Lou Williams who's just gunning from 3, and then you have Gravis Vasquez. I don't know. I think Lowry's fine, honestly. His minutes are really high, but I think the Raptors have an opportunity to rest him like 4 or 5 times down the stretch. Well, probably not. They probably won't do it, but like at least 3 times down in the last 10 games, he's going to be rested.
He played 70 games last season, and he logged 2,414 minutes.
Yeah.
So far this year, he's played 70 games, and he's logged 200 more minutes, and there's still 12 more games to play. So by the end of the season, he's going to be logging significantly more minutes than he did all of last year.
Yeah, but he's also been fit.
Okay, yeah, I'm
I don't
just
know.
giving you
I'm
the
just
stats,
terrified.
man. I'm saying the guy's question.
Don't do this to me, Zerar. I'm so scared, man. Without healthy Lowry, we might flame out in the first round again.
The guy is coming from it's not an insane question.
Yeah, that's true.
I see where he's coming from.
All right, fair enough. I just didn't want to confront.
I think you're lying to yourself, Will.
All right. That's it for Twitter questions, man.
Well,
let's just preview next week's game super quickly.
All right, so it's okay. Let's do next week's game. Do we really need to? Do these games really mean anything? Will do they really?
I mean, you got some. It's a tough week.
Go for it. Preview it.
You got the Thunder on Monday at home. That's tough. Lowry's going to play a lot of minutes in the Thunder game.
Beat the Spurs. Okay.
Yeah, the Spurs rested everybody. So.
Okay, Spurs are smart. They're resting everybody. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead,
so the Thunder game.
You're the one
what
wanted to preview this. Go for it.
Thunder. I mean, it's difficult, but the Raptors have played the Thunder really well over the last couple of years. Even in the Thunder wins, like, you know, that one where John Salmons missed like some free throws and then inbounded the ball right to Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
It's a home game, 7:30 p.m. I think earlier there was some belief that this might be DeMarre Carroll's return date, where he would like it after the road trip.
I'd chill. I wouldn't bring him back against Kevin Durant, but that's just me.
Okay. So I don't know. Probably a loss. Thunder are playing really well.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. The Raptors have a better record than the Thunder this year. It's nuts. It's crazy. Okay, the Hawks after that on Wednesday at home. Potential second-round matchup.
Last time we played them, this is on NBA TV, by the way, so a bit of a national coverage down south, slightly. JV had a really good game against Horford and Millsap. And I know that you're kind of scared of that front line and saying there could be problems in the playoffs if we face them. I'm not too worried about them because I do think we have a solid front line as well defensively. I think last time around, JV saw how he can be a strong defender against a mobile front court.
Yeah, and I think the Raptors, the way they're built is, it's matchup-wise, is really good against the Hawks because the Raptors like to move it side to side. You have two threats at all times on either side of the court with two guards, Lowry and DeRozan, or sometimes even Joseph. And what the Hawks do really well is they like swarm and they trap. But as long as the Raptors can move the ball well and move to the weak side and attack from that side, the Hawks are kind of toast. Especially since they don't have the defenders really to keep up with Lowry or with DeRozan. DeRozan's really dominated against the Hawks this year, and also like the Hawks, their offense isn't that great, and I don't know if the Hawks can defensively rebound. Not only are they sort of swarming, like their bigs just aren't dominant rebounders, and you saw Luis Scola pick up like 4 offensive rebounds against them. So.
I think last time we faced them, the biggest problem for us wasn't really their front line at all. It was Schroeder, who was
that's right. Yeah,
he's
backcourt. Super
he's
quick.
So quick that Corey Joseph was basically abused against him. We won the game, but Schroeder had his way, and because Corey Joseph likes to like pressure on the screen and like go up top and kind of
you just can't do that with Schroeder.
You can't do it with Schroeder because every time he just turned the corner, and he's a good passer. He's a quick. He's one of those guys that like you don't know where he's going to pass until he passes it. Like he doesn't telegraph his passes at all. You just it's very quick. It's very deceptive, and I like the guy. So I think that's our weakness against them is Teague and Schroeder. By the way, did you see last night the Hawks forgot Jeff Teague in Detroit? Like the bus left and Teague was still at the arena.
That's where you want to be forgotten in Detroit. And that's always great because all the talk of the trade deadline was the Hawks are shopping Teague, the Hawks are shopping Teague, and just straight up leave him.
It was like that's one way to be notified of a trade.
Yeah, seriously. Poor guy. All right, then they got a back-to-back on the road against the Grizzlies and against the Spurs on Friday, Saturday. I say you play that Grizzlies game out like a regular game, and then you just rest everybody against the Spurs. The Spurs have won like 45 games in a row at home.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
What's the point of playing the starters against the Spurs?
It's a back-to-back too, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
There's just
on the road.
You can't. These games don't mean anything. I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, when does DeMarre Carroll come back? Like, what's the game where you bring him back and you ease him back into the lineup?
Hopefully against the Hawks.
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
And then you give him some run in the Grizzlies, and then if you rest all the starters, then you can give him some run against the Spurs as well. But yeah, that's
Spurs are resting players. Even if we
100%.
win against them, it's not going to mean anything because they're going to be resting guys. So I just don't see what the point here is.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, I would really hope that Dwayne Casey just gives up on the Spurs game.
By the way, on a different note, I mean, we talked about this before in some podcasts, but you know, all these games are so meaningless for so many teams right now that maybe the NBA should do something about this. It's problematic.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really seeing much shifting in the standings. Like, you see some minor jockeying on the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings, but out west, like, aside from Dallas falling a couple, notches like they do every year, not much is happening. Like, seriously, like the playoffs have been basically set for, I don't know, at least a month.
Reduce the regular season to 72 games and then have those 10 games as a separate competition, a la the FA Cup. I've been saying this for like a decade now.
That's big, yeah.
You would actually inject some excitement into this thing, and you'll give the lower teams like, I don't know, like the Indianas or some of those teams to actually compete for something like a bit of a prize.
And let's also have relegation.
Well, relegation's not going to happen. I mean,
let's relegate the Sixers right out of here.
Relegation would be so freaking awesome in the league, but just the money, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're not going to lose Philadelphia as a market. There's no way, and you're not going to replace them with Delaware 87ers or whatever.
Exactly.
That's
they
have a guy named Russ Smith who scored 65
in the D League.
Yeah, in the D League, and the game I think before that in Baron Davis's debut. Baron Davis plays there.
Back in the league. Yeah, I saw that.
In Baron Davis's debut, the story was missed that Russ Smith scored 50 in that game.
Yeah.
Baron Davis. Watch out for Russ Smith.
He was in shape. Baron Davis.
Yeah, he's still barrel-chested, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Any more games this week, Will?
No, that's it.
I think that's it.
That's it. Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay, I think that brings to conclusion.
It's a lot of talk for a lot of meaningless games.
Podcast. And at this point, we encourage you to check out Blake and Will's Raptors Weekly Extra podcast, which airs on Fridays. And also check out Talking Raptors, which airs midweek. And last time they had the All Handsome team, which I listened to.
Good show.
The only debate there was between Rudy Gay and Chandler Parsons.
I don't see it with Rudy Gay, man. I really don't.
I don't see it either. And I don't get I don't know who it was, but somebody nominated like Derrick Rose.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but we're not going to edge over to their domain.
Mike Conley, though. Yeah, Mike Conley over Derrick Rose for sure on that team.
By the way, I have been on Snapchat lately, and the only Raptor that Snapchats really is Patrick Patterson, and that's where I got that information about Kyle Lowry.
What's his handle?
I don't know. Don't ask me those tough questions, Will. I don't know.
Right.
Just Google it up or something. And the other thing he wrote on his Snapchat was, and we'll end with this, Will, is all I want is someone who will listen to 90s music with me, who can Netflix and chill, and who likes to sing in the car. Is that asking for too much?
He's a simple man.
Yeah. He's a simple man who basically posts every 10 minutes. Like he's Snapchatting, like baby listen to music, Kyle Lowry watching the Villanova game. It's everything. Give him a follow. I think it's PD Pat. But I don't know. I can't be too sure about that.
Mm-mm.
Will, man, thanks for coming on. I know you got podcast double duty this week with Blake as well. Listener, thank you for checking in with us. Give us a rating on iTunes and Stitcher and Acast and whatever mobile device you use to listen to the podcast. And also check out our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/RaptorsRepublic. We'll be back again next week with another podcast edging closer to the playoffs. And hopefully we'll have some DeMarre Carroll return news to talk about. Until then, goodbye.